In this video, I want to review the four basic operations in mathematics. The first operation that you probably learned was addition. The second operation that you probably learned was subtraction. And then you learned multiplication. And finally, you learned division. These operations are very closely related, and they really all come from counting. When you first learned to count, you started with nothing. You would add on 1, then add another 1 to get 2, add 1 to get 3, and add another 1 to get 4, and so on. You quickly became much better at counting by learning addition and realizing that if you had started with 3 things and then you were to add 2 more things, you would have 3 plus 2, giving you 5 things. So addition was fairly simple on the number line. Clear that. Now subtraction was only slightly more difficult. You realized early on that you might start with 6 of something and want to take 2 away. So if you were paying attention to your number line, you realized that instead of going 2 units to the right, you could go minus 2 by going 2 units to the left. A really helpful way, though, to think about subtraction is that it's really the addition of the opposite. So rather than thinking of the problem 6 minus 2, it might be useful to think of 6 plus the opposite of 2. And since adding 2 would take you 2 units to the right on the number line, subtracting 2 would take you 2 units to the left on the number line. Things would get more abstract when you started subtracting numbers that were larger than what you had, and you would end up in the negative region. But subtraction would take you to the left, as would adding a negative. And adding a positive would take you to the right on the number line. So subtraction is really just a different form of addition. Clear that. Now multiplication is the next thing that you learned about. And it is another operation. In other words, it tells you what to do with the numbers. Now, multiplication is actually also another form of addition. You quickly learned that if you were trying to repeatedly add 2, you could write 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 more 2 is a total of 8 spaces on the number line. That works fairly nicely when you have a limited number of additions, but if you wanted to have more of them, this just wasn't very convenient. So you quickly learned that we could rewrite 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 as 4 times 2, which is equal to 8. And this notation was much more compact, especially if we wanted to do something like 27 times 5. You certainly wouldn't want to write 5 out 27 times. So multiplication is a way of having repeated addition. Now, let's get to division. What is division? Just like multiplication is repeated addition, division is, by analogy, repeated subtraction. So when I say, what is 20 divided by 5, okay, I could rewrite that as 20 over 5. What I can do to solve that problem is repeatedly subtract. I could take 20 minus 5 gives me 15. I could subtract 5 again and get 10. I could come up here and start with my 10 again, subtract 5 again, and I'm left with 5, and then subtract 5 again, and I'm down to 0. So 20 divided by 5 is really saying how many times can I subtract 5 from 20? And you can take 4 steps of 5 to get from 20 down to 0 on the number line. So the answer would be 4. Now, you probably learned that you can do division with things that don't work out so nicely. So if instead I had taken, let's say, the number 22 divided by 7, it wouldn't work so nicely. I would start with 22 minus 7 once, and I would get, let's see, better check my math here, I would get 15. Then if I take 15 minus 7, I will end up with 8. And if I take 8 minus 7, I get 1. We can't subtract 7 another time, so you may have learned that 22 divided by 7 could be expressed as, let me go back to this color, we could say 22 divided by 7 is equal to 3 with a remainder of 1. Another, probably a better mathematical way of saying that is, it is 3 plus 1 out of 22 left over, which could be written as a mixed number, 3 and 1/22. So if we consider all of the operations from the beginning, we can look at them in a very ordered way. We started with addition. If we want to do the opposite of addition, we can do subtraction. If we want to repeatedly add, we can do multiplication to speed that process up. And let me spell that correctly. If instead of repeatedly adding, I want to see how many times I can subtract, I will do division. And obviously multiplication and division do the opposite of one another. So for instance, by doing the opposite, I mean in terms of addition and subtraction, if I added 2 and then subtracted 2, I would have undone what I had done in the first step. With multiplication, if I had multiplied by 2 and then I turn around and divide by 2, I'm back to where I started from. So multiplication and division are opposite operations of one another.